50 years of volunteer. George Robert Bob Woodruff came to the University of Tennessee in 1935 as a walk-on football player and a student in the College of Engineering. The football coach was R.R. Neyland, or Nayland. Bob Woodruff, in a backyard conversation, remembers those first days 50 years ago.
Well, John, really, the first time I saw General Nayland, he was Major Nayland then, and he asked me my name in the dressing room. I'd been out for spring practice. We started in January the 12th and ended up in April. But he asked me my name and I said, Woodruff. He looked at my legs. He liked my legs, I think. He said, oh, you're the one that had that good grade in calculus. I said, yes, sir.
Woodruff was a member of Tennessee's first bowl team ever in 1938, then began as an assistant coach at UT. Later, he was an assistant to Colonel Red Blaik at West Point with Army's great teams in World War II. And then he became an assistant coach to Bobby Dodd at Georgia Tech.
Well, I came to Georgia Tech. It was Dodd's second year, and we went to his first bowl game that he coached as a head coach. And Baylor offered him the head coaching job, and Dodd came back home, and he said, Woodruff said, I recommended you out there. I said, Coach, he said, you can go out there and do what I did. I said, Coach Dodd, if they offer me that head coaching job, I'm going to take it. And they did. And we went out to Baylor, and we had the good fortune of taking Baylor to its first bowl game. After that, Florida came by and offered me more salary than I'd ever heard of. And so I went to Florida and took some of our staff with us and had the good fortune of taking Florida to its first bowl game. So, these other head coaches here at Tennessee, I was with them when they went to their first bowl game back at Tennessee.
So the circle was complete as Tennessee turned to Woodruff to become its athletics director.
I think Bob came to us in the mid-'60s at a time when the athletic department had lost really a great leader in General Neyland. We had a little transition period there. He came at a time when we needed good, solid, stable leadership, people, somebody who really knew how to run an athletic program.
So the period of expansion in facilities and emphasis on all sports accelerated, and Tennessee's impact as a leader in college sports became a reality.
The University of Tennessee, under Bob Woodruff's direction in athletics, has probably done more than any one other institution in our conference to drag the rest of the conference up by Tennessee's bootstraps. You know, there was a long time when people regarded us, you know, as a football conference. Then it got to be a football and basketball conference. But by golly, when Tennessee puts that track team out there, you know, they're not only going to win the conference, they're trying to win the NC2A championship.
Competitive in all sports, the Big Orange concept, the Woodruff concept, create an atmosphere to make a game on UT's campus a happening, a magical and memorable moment.
I don't know of any major complaints that the fans have had, except they like to win them all. But other than that, I think that the fan, is look forward to coming to Neyland Stadium because of the surroundings and the environment and the excitement from many aspects.
It starts with the student and the student-athlete relationship, that you run a program that's good for the student-athlete and you run a program that's good for the students to come see, and you make room for all of them to come see whatever you can. From that point on, then you have to do whatever you can to build fan facilities and to attract the fans with quality programs. And I think this pretty well has been his concept, that he didn't really get into the heavy money raising, that what was important was the fan who continued to come and the fan who bought the season ticket and the fella who talked about it, whether it's in White Pine, Tennessee or Memphis. that he was talking about the Vols. And in the end, he listened on the radio, he watched you on TV, he came when he could, and this in the end built the true Tennessee tradition.
A lot of students at the university do not realize how important Bob Woodruff thinks they are to football games and basketball games. He has always said, let's be sure the students are taken care of.
Make Tennessee sports special to fans of all ages from all parts of the state, yet maintain stability through some very basic business concepts.
The object in intercollegiate athletics is to put on a program. It's not how much money you make. It's not how many games you win necessarily, but winning does help. But to have the program, you got to have good coaches, you got to have good players, and you got to have a schedule to make your budget.
The importance of coaches to Tennessee's position in college athletics.
I think Coach Woodruff is certainly is highly regarded, has a tremendous amount of respect from people in athletics throughout the nation, from coast to coast, because of his contributions to it. Coach Woodruff is a man of integrity.
I think he has a great insight to what athletics is all about and what it takes to be a good coach and what it takes to represent the university well.
He's a man who I think let people do their thing. And as a result, I think he's remembered by those who worked for him as somebody who didn't bother him and didn't put too many crimps in their style, whatever it was, so that you had a chance to do your thing. And when it was all over, you either did it or you didn't.
Coach Woodruff's greatest strength as the athletic director at the University of Tennessee was his ability to hire the right people for the position. As a basketball coach, he gave me the opportunity to schedule all the basketball games, organize the volunteer classic, organize the Orange Tie Club, work on the halftime program. The only thing that I had a little trouble with is when I had a halftime show where I was going to have someone wrestle the bear, Coach Woodruff would not wrestle the bear for me. The only time that I try to hide from Coach Woodruff is when he's looking for someone to make a speech for him. You know, his ability to make a speech is equivalent to that of a block punt. And one day he caught me and he said, we're going to go to Dyersburg. I didn't know we were going to spend 2 days in Dyersburg because I didn't have any change of clothes.
Coach Woodruff's public speaking style is, by his own admission, unique. But here again, there's method in the madness.
There were many experiences I had with him with reference to his inability to speak. One, let me give you an example. I went to Cobo Hall with him once to see an indoor track meet. And when the event was over, we went to the hotel, and I said, I'll go on up the room, and I'll see you in the morning. He said, you don't have a room, we're rooming together, which is typical, saving money, you know, Woodruff's that way. And he got on a telephone call with the athletic director at Penn State. And this was the famous night when we had been trying to decide whether or not they would come back and play that game that they owed us. They didn't want to come because it was too hot to play in early September, and so they finally made the statement to Bob that they would only come if we had lights. Well, in his dragging way, he would slowly say this and he would say that. And I don't think the athletic director ever knew exactly what he was getting into, but Bob finally turned to me, put his hand over the telephone, and he said, with what we're going to get out of this, I could buy the lights. And he said, should I tell him we'll have lights? I said, tell him we'll have lights. So he turned around. Well, this is the kind of experience you have.
Bob Woodruff, always active in Olympics, the NCAA, and the Southeastern Conference, described by his colleagues.
Bob Woodruff is, first of all, for his institution. But like so many other people, their second choice is this conference, and that's the way it ought to be.
Almost all of the important committee assignments, we've seen this for years, the TV committee, where they make the real basic decisions, they ask Bob to serve on it because I think they have great respect for his judgment.
Bob is a very wise man. Bob's thinking a lot of times ahead of the crowd in certain instances.
This was awful. I told this writer, I said, I'd rather deal with Ho Chi Minh than Bob Woodruff. My wife fainted. It's in headlines in the paper in Athens.
Bob Woodruff is a very unique individual in intercollegiate athletics, and particularly within the state of Tennessee. I'm not sure how many people really realize the contributions of this gentleman. He's a close personal friend of mine. I've got great respect for him. The one man I talked to before I took the job at Vanderbilt from an athletic standpoint was Bob Woodruff, because I've got great respect for him and what he's done for the University of Tennessee. And in his tenure as that athletic director, I have seen the University of Tennessee rise from a school that was known as a football type of institution to one of the best all-around, most competitive athletic programs anywhere in the nation, with the finest facilities of anybody almost I've seen anywhere in the country. Certainly they're our competitor, very intense competitor, but there's nobody in the country I've got more respect for who is more aware of what it takes to develop a sound program within the structure of higher education than Bob Woodruff. And I certainly hope that this state is aware of what he means, what he's meant to this state, what he means to it, and the contributions that are there for all time, because he's had that position.
We ask, if you had to choose a word to describe Bob Woodruff, what would it be?
Probably couldn't put it in a word. Coach Woodruff has been an excellent servant for the University of Tennessee and an outstanding leader for the University of Tennessee.
Deceptive, deceptively wise.
Bob is not loved in the great, oh, good old Bob, we love him. He is admired, though, because people know that Bob Woodruff knows what he's talking about when it comes to athletics.
The main thing that I remember about Coach Woodruff is the way he handled my situation when I had a problem with depression. He treated me like his son, and I always remember him for that.
He is a man who has, I think, always stepped up with a new idea, a new initiative. He's not just a man who reacted. He's a man who lived by initiative.
Bob will fool you. Folks don't realize how smart that guy is.
Really, Coach Woodruff should be remembered a long time by the fans of Tennessee, because he has put his heart and soul in it since he's been in a position to do something for the University of Tennessee.
Perhaps, in the end, the Big Orange fan, who's never met him, identifies Bob Woodruff the best. Heart and soul of changes for the better. What about the future?
Remember this, what we built in the 60s is not necessarily, you can't stay. We are going to have to start building some new complexes for students, athletes, and for our total program. There are several things that need to be done, and I'm sure that Coach Dickey and all the other coaches will do far more in the next 20 years than we did.
Ladies and gentlemen, we ask now that you please stand as the story of Bob Woodruff, 50 years of volunteer, continues. Its basic theme today, the same as it has been for Coach Woodruff. The University of Tennessee first, himself second.
Ladies and gentlemen, the University of Tennessee, pride of the Southland Band, directed by Dr. J. Julian, is joined now by George Beatsis for the singing of the Tennessee alma mater.
On a hallowed hill in Tennessee, like beacon shining bright, the stately walls of old UT rise glorious to the sight. So here's to you, old Tennessee, our alma mater true. We
Ladies and gentlemen, the man you honor tonight, 50 years of volunteer, Bob Woodruff.
Thank you, John. I'm sure that